April 2026 Financial Astrology, the Cardinal Crossroads and the Mutable shift of Uranus, evolutionary shocks, and the Aries fire. Navigating the cryptocurrency markets requires an understanding of technology, sentiment, and macroeconomics. For some, it also involves reading the celestial cycles for potential clues about market psychology and timing. Using Western tropical financial astrology, we can analyze the planetary transits for April 2026 to identify periods of potential volatility, optimism, or consolidation for Bitcoin, altcoins, and related markets like the dollar and precious metals. These forecasts are based on Western traditional financial astrology principles, archetypal planetary symbolism, and the collective psychology driving financial behavior to provide you with a unique strategic edge. Astrology maps energetic potentials, not certainties. We strongly advise that all traders integrate these insights with rigorous technical and fundamental analysis, and robust risk management. Be vigilant for geopolitical events or regulatory shifts, as these external shocks can quickly override astrological indicators. This video is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. And now, let's decode the astrology for April 2026, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started. April 2026 marks a profound shift in the global financial landscape, driven by an intense concentration of energy in Aries and the generational ingress of Uranus into Gemini. This month ushers in a period of high-stakes, pioneer energy, as we transition rapidly from the physical, grounded concerns of traditional banking and established value systems, symbolized by Taurus, into the lightning-fast, data-driven world of information and decentralized communication, Gemini. This celestial alignment portends a significant reboot of the global financial system's nervous pathways, setting the stage for entirely new paradigms. A dense cluster of planetary activity in Cardinal Aries, combined with the activation of the historical Saturn-Neptune conjunction and Uranus's generational shift into Mutable Gemini, signifies a period for burning away the old and witnessing the birth of new financial paradigms. The macroeconomic atmosphere will be defined by aggressive action, potential regulatory friction, and sudden technological breakthroughs. The dominant astrological signature involves Mars entering Aries on April 9, activating the February 20 Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and creating a cascading series of alignments that peak with the Mars-Saturn exact conjunction on April 19. This volatile configuration coincides with Uranus's final days in Taurus, culminating in its entry into Gemini on April 26, a transit historically linked to revolutionary changes in communication technologies, monetary systems, and network infrastructures. The interplay between Mars-Saturn's restrictive, crystallizing energy and Uranus-Gemini's liberating, dispersive impulse is expected to create a bifurcated market environment, where heavy consolidation in legacy assets may occur simultaneously with explosive volatility in emerging technology sectors. The Jupiter-Saturn cycle and market mechanics. The interplay between Jupiter and Saturn establishes the primary support and resistance levels currently dictating market sentiment. Jupiter's transit through Cancer drives an expansive, protective energy that favors accumulation in defensive tech and speculative assets, fueling early April growth. However, this is countered by the restrictive, austere influence of Saturn in Aries. As mid-April approaches, the Mars-Saturn conjunction introduces significant corrective pressure, effectively capping price rallies. This tension culminates in the mid-April triple conjunction of Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, which reinforces the strength of the US dollar index. Consequently, investors should anticipate that optimistic price surges will likely face structural rejection, with sustained bullish momentum waning after April 20 as Saturnian discipline forces a reality check on inflated valuations. Macroeconomic shifts and institutional realignment. Beyond immediate volatility, the outer planets are orchestrating a long-term transformation of the financial landscape. Uranus's ingress into Gemini on April 26 marks a pivotal shift for digital assets, moving the market away from speculative, store of value narratives toward a focus on functional utility and velocity. Simultaneously, Pluto's transit through Aquarius is driving a generational overhaul of legacy banking, pushing large institutional players to favor compliant blockchain protocols and centralized stablecoins over unregulated alternatives. While Neptune's nebulous influence creates ambiguity regarding monetary policy, the combined pressure of these outer planets suggests a structural tightening that rewards projects with robust fundamentals while exposing those built on idealistic hype. Hidden currents and structural vulnerabilities. Underpinning these macro trends are the subtle influences of the nodes and deeper cosmic currents that reveal market vulnerabilities. The North Node in Pisces facilitates quiet, cross-border liquidity movements, often driven by sovereign wealth funds and a whale activity that operates beneath the surface of public narratives. This hidden activity often stabilizes price baselines even when retail sentiment is fractured. Conversely, the South Node in Virgo warns against the dangers of over-leveraged positions and dark pool trading, while the presence of Lilith in Sagittarius serves to highlight blind spots in ESG-linked projects. Investors must remain cautious, as these unseen currents suggest that while institutional adoption is accelerating, the market remains susceptible to abrupt corrections when speculative narratives, particularly in the AI altcoin sector, clash with these deeper, structural realities. Key astrological events of April 2026. Early April, full moon rebalancing and Jupiter's optimism. Mars enters Aries. April 2nd, full moon in Libra, the archetype of rebalancing and the Taurus foundation. The dawn of April is anchored by Venus's transit through Taurus, situating the global market psyche within the archetypal second house of value, wealth, and material permanence. This placement demands a focus on price stability and the tangible backing of assets, yet it is immediately challenged by the full moon in Libra on April 2nd. This lunar peak creates a powerful axis of tension between the impulsive me-first energy of Aries and the relational, equanimous demands of Libra. Historically, similar configurations have signaled a flight-to-value rally followed by sharp corrective dips. In this environment, the market seeks equilibrium amidst systemic uncertainty, often resulting in a sell the news mentality where early speculative surges in precious metals and high-beta assets like Bitcoin are met with institutional profit-taking to restore portfolio harmony. April 3rd, the Mercury-Jupiter trine, optimism and speculative fervor. During the first week of the month, a trine between Mercury and Jupiter acts as a celestial megaphone for bullish narratives. This aspect, peaking around April 3rd, typically manifests as a surge in green candles, particularly for Bitcoin and major altcoins, driven by expansive news cycles and a general air of macroeconomic hope. The optimism is further flavored by the Sun's trine to Black Moon Lilith, which encourages unconventional investment strategies and a rebellious departure from traditional financial norms. This combination fuels a retail-driven pump, where communication regarding Web3 adoption and decentralized philanthropy creates a sense of inevitable growth. However, this expansive energy is shadowed by the Sun's subsequent square to Jupiter, reminding market participants that overconfidence can lead to overextension and a subsequent need for consolidation. April 3rd, a Venus square Pluto, liquidity squeeze and value perception. The most intense friction of the early month arises from Venus in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius on April 3rd. This transit represents a profound psychological clash between established perceptions of intrinsic worth and the destructive, transformative power of new technology. In financial terms, this often translates to a sudden liquidity squeeze or a shakeout, designed to liquidate over-leveraged positions, particularly in XRP and privacy-focused, decentralized finance tokens. As Venus represents the flow of capital and Pluto represents the deep, often hidden forces of the whale or institutional manipulator, this square warns of sudden, sharp devaluations meant to test the resolve of retail holders before a new price floor can be established. This is a period of creative destruction, where only assets with genuine structural utility survive the transition from traditional value to the Plutonian digital age. April 5, Sun square Saturn, the Saturnian break and regulatory realism. As the month progresses, the market's raw momentum is tempered by the structural influence of Saturn in Aries. While the initial impulse of the month is one of expansion, the Sun square to Saturn on April 5 introduces a restrictive dampener. This aspect serves as a reminder of the market maker's hand, often manifesting as tightened exchange policies, regulatory scrutiny, or the enforcement of stricter margin requirements. This tug-of-war between the expansionism of Jupiter and the contraction of Saturn creates a whipsawed environment, where price action bounces violently between key support and resistance zones. Investors move from the impulsive risk-taking encouraged by the Sagittarius moon early in the week to a defensive, institutional-grade posture as the moon enters Capricorn, prioritizing capital preservation over speculative gains. April 9, Mars enters Aries, the Martian fuse and modern institutional shift. The final pivot of the opening decan occurs on April 9, when Mars enters Aries, significantly increasing the velocity of market movements. Mars acts as the match that lights the fuse of volatility, immediately activating sensitive degrees that foreshadow the major structural shifts of the late 2020s. For banking-related tokens and ISO-compliant assets, this entry marks a move toward aggressive boundary-dissolving the news, where legal resolutions or institutional integrations may suddenly accelerate. While the early month is characterized by a calm before the storm sentiment, the arrival of Mars ensures that the neutral to bullish prelude ends in a burst of high-energy momentum, forcing a transition from theoretical value to active, aggressive market participation. Mid-April, the Mars-Saturn-Neptune conjunction. The Saturn-Neptune cycle underpins the rise and fall of ideological structures and the manifestation of collective dreams. Its last meeting in 1989 coincided with the Soviet Union's collapse and the fall of the Berlin Wall, marking the dissolution of a rigid geopolitical order. This alignment at the vernal point, or world axis, suggests a total reset of global identity, moving from bureaucratic endings towards a more urgent, pioneering, and potentially volatile new beginning. For financial markets, such a fundamental reorientation implies significant shifts in capital allocation, as old paradigms give way to new economic models, potentially triggering volatility in established sectors while opening speculative avenues in emerging industries aligned with evolving collective values and geopolitical realignments. The addition of Mars to this powerful Saturn-Neptune alignment in April 2026 introduces a catalytic surge of kinetic energy and potential friction. Historically, Mars-Saturn-Neptune configurations have mirrored intense social or state mobilization, transforming abstract ideological tensions into tangible physical action. This triple conjunction creates immense pressure, where Neptune's idealism and Saturn's structure are activated by Mars's assertive, often combative nature, forcing societies to confront discrepancies between stated values and current realities. In financial terms, this heightened dynamic could manifest as periods of extreme market volatility, driven by rapid policy shifts, geopolitical conflicts, or widespread social unrest impacting asset valuations. Investors may witness rapid repricing in commodities, defense, technology, and sectors associated with new infrastructure or resource allocation as global power dynamics and societal priorities are aggressively redefined. April 13, Mars conjunct Neptune, the fog of Neptune and the pump. The initial phase of mid-April opens with a potent blend of assertive Martian energy and Neptunian dissipation. As Mars ingresses into its domicile of Aries on April 9, it ushers in a surge of raw, aggressive market impetus. However, this bullish zeal is quickly tempered by its conjunction with Neptune on April 13, casting a pervasive fog of war over the financial landscape. Archetypally, this signifies a collision between desire and delusion, where market rallies, while appearing robust, are often rooted in irrational exuberance, wash trading, or deceptive trap breakouts. Investors are urged to remain vigilant against unseen market vulnerabilities or security exploits, as the Martian fire is temporarily dampened by Neptunian dissolution. This astrological signature can favor assets like silver, which thrive amidst inflationary or speculative uncertainty, while simultaneously leaving Bitcoin wrestling with directional confusion. April 17, the Aries new moon, a brief impulse of a risk-on. As the week progresses towards April 17, a discernible risk-on sentiment emerges, anchored by the Aries new moon. Occurring in the final degrees of Aries, this lunation ignites a powerful, almost desperate, urge for a new bull cycle, creating a compelling buy-the-dip opportunity. Concurrently, Mercury's ingress into Aries on April 15 sharpens the market's communication, shifting the narrative from diffuse speculation toward aggressive, fact-based dissemination, often dominated by optimistic, mass adoption headlines. This period provides a strong bullish influence for both Bitcoin and altcoins, making it an opportune window for initiating new long positions for short-term gains. Yet, beneath this bullish facade, the backdrop of the Sun's conjunction with Chiron on April 16 signals a period of wounded confidence among major liquidity providers, potentially leading to thinner order books and heightened volatility. Simultaneously, a quiet Mars-Pluto sextile on the same day allows for discrete, behind-the-scenes restructuring of large portfolios, subtly shifting capital away from high-risk assets in anticipation of upcoming challenges. April 19, the Mars-Saturn wall, the hard correction. The hopeful momentum of the new moon abruptly meets the harsh wall of structural reality as the month transitions into its most critical window from April 17 to April 23. This period is defined by a formidable, Saturnian gauntlet, an intense cluster of restrictive aspects. Saturn, the archetypal regulator and a ceiling, asserts its authority with Mars conjoining Saturn on April 19, swiftly followed by Mercury conjoining Saturn around April 20. This malefic conjunction acts as a definitive stop-e sign for market exuberance, frequently manifesting as sudden regulatory crackdowns, significant market corrections, or a liquidity crunch. The freewheeling energy of early April encounters the cold, hard logic of structural reality and strict monetary intent. April 19 and 20 marks a critical risk-off period as Mars and Mercury both collide with Saturnian discipline. This is a classic signature for market corrections and the hardening of regulatory walls. For assets such as XRP, which are historically sensitive to structural and legal headlines, this period may coincide with significant litigation updates or price suppression as authorities reassert control. April 20, Saturn-Mercury conjunction, the weighing of words and assets, from speculation to solidity. The Mercury-Saturn conjunction on April 20 lends considerable weight and gravity to official statements, particularly those emanating from central banks. This period is prone to gaslighting and misinformation regarding Federal Reserve policy, as aggressive trading narratives inevitably confront a reality check, in the form of restrictive monetary signals. Market sentiment throughout this window is distinctly bearish, indicating a correction phase where caution and rigorous risk management are paramount. For the dollar index, DXY, this environment is strongly bullish, as investors instinctively flee risk assets, such as Bitcoin, toward the perceived safety of the greenback amidst market contraction and a pronounced de-risking event expected around April 19 to 20. April 20, Sun enters Taurus, the shift to stability and institutional anchoring. As the Sun enters the stable sign of Taurus on April 20, the market's focus gradually shifts from pure speculation toward more stable, value-oriented assets. This cultural shift could temporarily benefit Bitcoin as a digital gold store of value, attracting capital away from riskier altcoins. However, this quest for a stabilizing price floor through institutional value anchoring is preceded by Saturn's strict enforcement of margin requirements and capital controls, amplifying the impact of regulatory announcements. The market remains under the heavy hand of the Sun-Saturn interplay, influencing the behavior of market makers and institutional players. Throughout this period, Jupiter's presence in Cancer offers a protective, conservative influence, encouraging capital to flow toward established, home-based institutions like banks and insurance companies, further endorsing a flight to safety over speculative exploration. Late April, the great astrological paradigm shift, Uranus enters Gemini. The final week of April heralds a dramatic astrological turning point, shifting the market's tone from a period of a Saturnian constraint into a new era of Uranian innovation. This time frame, specifically April 24th through April 30th, promises heightened volatility, particularly favoring technology and alternative digital assets. Overall market stability is expected to be low as a significant reordering of value perception takes hold. April 24th, Venus conjunct Uranus, Taurus's swan song and the looming power struggle. Sun square Pluto, April 25th. The period commences with a potent swan song for traditional value assets. On April 24th, Venus, the celestial ruler of value in Taurus, forms a powerful conjunction with Uranus, the planet of sudden change and disruption, in the very final degree of Taurus, right before Venus enters Gemini. The Venus-Uranus conjunction on April 24th may coincide with sudden currency realignments or unexpected central bank interventions. This rare alignment is poised to trigger massive and abrupt price movements within precious metals such as gold and silver, signaling a definitive exit from established financial paradigms. Simultaneously, a looming power struggle casts a shadow over the markets as the Sun forms a challenging square to Pluto on April 25th. This aspect points to a fierce conflict between centralized power, represented by Pluto in Aquarius, and traditional economic value, embodied by the Sun in Taurus. Should distressing fundamental news emerge, perhaps a regulatory crackdown or a significant liquidation by large institutional holders, a substantial market correction remains a distinct possibility. April 26th, the Uranus ingress in Gemini, a new era for altcoins, the dawn of a digital renaissance. The most momentous event of this transformative week occurs on April 26th. Uranus, the planet of technology, innovation, and sudden shocks, makes its historic ingress into Gemini. The ingress of Uranus into Gemini in late April 2026 marks a radical shift in the collective intellect and the infrastructure of communication. Uranus returns to Gemini only once every 84 years, and its previous transits have consistently heralded revolutions in how humanity shares information and moves across the Earth. The most recent transit, from 1941 to 1948, saw the birth of modern computing, the height of the Second World War, and a massive leap in aerospace and radio technology. Prior to that, the 1858-1866 transit coincided with the American Civil War and the rapid expansion of the telegraph, which fundamentally changed the speed of human interaction. As Uranus enters Gemini again, it signals a period of disruptive innovation in artificial intelligence, decentralized systems, and a likely reconfiguration of global borders or regional alliances. This significant shift defines the next 7 years for the financial markets, initiating a multi-year supercycle for decentralized networks and AI-integrated tokens. With Uranus now residing in Gemini, the sign of communication, data, and exchange, a monumental revolution in digital communication and high-frequency trading is set to unfold. This ingress is intensely bullish for a vast array of digital assets, promising an explosion of interest in altcoins, especially those at the forefront of artificial intelligence, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, DePIN, oracles, and both centralized and decentralized exchange tokens. This cosmic alignment unequivocally marks the birth of a profound new trend, fostering rapid rotational trading away from stable holdings and into Web3 infrastructure and AI-adjacent tokens as traders perceive shifting value towards intellectual property and evolving data networks. April 29th, FOMC meeting. Regulatory tensions and the Fed's whisper. The federal rate decision occurring on April 29th is predicted to trigger an intense market reaction. While broad transitions generally suggest a bullish inclination towards innovative altcoins, caution is advised, as specific astrological alignments warn of potential conflicting or negative news, particularly concerning regulatory developments. The Fed's primary focus is on projecting an image of established economic stability and maintaining control over inflation within traditional financial principles. However, their approach to policy is expected to be direct, assertive, and potentially restrictive, with indications pointing to new, stringent structures for international finance. Regulatory agencies are also anticipated to issue guidance on stablecoin reserves and AI-driven financial products during the latter half of the month, emphasizing compliance and liquidity for traders. Trader psychology and market reactions. The general public and short-term traders are expected to react highly to the FOMC statements, seeking balance and clarity. Indicators point to sharp, emotional responses to assertive policy announcements, potentially leading to significant market volatility as traders react against perceived restrictions. There is a risk of exaggerated emotional responses, amplified by sentiment rather than pure fundamentals. An underlying rebellious spirit in speculative markets is also noted, drawing many traders towards unconventional or high-risk investments that challenge established norms. Psychologically, traders will likely experience a push-pull between the desire for stability and fairness, and emotional triggers from potentially restrictive policies. This could manifest as indecision followed by impulsive, aggressive actions, contributing to high anxiety, rapid shifts in sentiment, and a tendency to engage in contrarian speculation. Capital flows and crypto investor strategies. Major crypto players, including whales, institutions, and funds, are operating within a transformative period, driven by fundamental shifts in power structures related to future technologies and decentralized systems. Their interest is keenly focused on innovative, fast-moving, and networked assets within the crypto space, seeking diverse investment opportunities and finding value in community-driven trends. These entities are strategically reevaluating shared resources and collective trust, navigating the immediate regulatory storm with flexible strategies to position themselves for long-term transformation. Despite potential unease around the Fed's decision, a surging forward-looking energy is expected to propel new-era digital assets. FOMC and traditional financial markets outlook. If rates are held steady or a dovish stance is adopted, the DXY US dollar index will likely see modest gains, reinforcing the value narrative for gold and silver, and providing a safety net for Bitcoin. Conversely, a surprise rate hike would trigger risk-off flows into gold and silver while causing a swift pullback in speculative altcoins. Should the Fed adopt a hawkish stance, a significant liquidation could ensue. However, another indicator points to a broader wealth transfer into new, digital systems, suggesting an overriding optimistic energy is poised to catalyze a relief rally for new-era altcoins and AI tokens. Gold is also expected to maintain a bullish outlook, supported by lingering concerns about fiat currency stability. General stock market outlook. The general stock markets are poised for initial volatility and sharp reactions following the FOMC announcement. Underlying influences suggest a foundational desire for stability and value, favoring established, fundamentally strong companies. Disciplined investments are likely to be supported. However, significant astrological configurations indicate restrictive long-term policies and assertive actions from regulators, which could weigh heavily on overall market sentiment. This combination of factors points to a general bearish sentiment initially, particularly for growth or speculative stocks, as the market processes the assertive and restrictive policy tone. In contrast, value stocks and established companies with robust fundamentals may exhibit greater resilience or even become attractive safe havens. Long-term, these restrictive policies could cap upside potential, fostering a choppy, range-bound market with a slight bearish lean until a clearer direction emerges. US Dollar Index, DXY, forecast. The US dollar index, DXY, is expected to demonstrate immediate strength. Indications strongly support a disciplined, stable, and assertive national currency, suggesting that the FOMC's direct and strong stance on policy, even if restrictive, will signal confidence in the currency. This aggressive posture for the dollar in global markets is likely to translate into an immediate bullish surge, as the market interprets the FOMC's assertive and restrictive stance as a sign of strength and stability for the U.S. economy. While there might be subtle influences hinting at potential for hidden expansion of liabilities or nationalistic economic policies in the longer term, which could temper sustained bullishness, the immediate post-announcement period is highly probable to see a stronger dollar. Precious metals, gold and silver outlook. Precious metals like gold and silver are likely to experience a bullish trajectory. There is a strong collective desire for security and a reliable store of value. These assets are also supported by the potential for hidden inflation or an expansion of debt, which traditionally acts as a catalyst for their demand. Furthermore, restrictive economic policies and prevailing global instability are expected to drive investors towards safe haven assets. Public anxiety and potential overreactions to these underlying economic pressures will further boost demand for hedges, positioning precious metals for a strong positive reaction as they serve as traditional safe havens and inflation buffers. FOMC and crypto market dynamics. The crypto markets are inherently defined by high volatility and unpredictable shifts, characteristic of a new era of disruptive innovation within decentralized networks. This sector is undergoing deep, transformative power struggles over the future of decentralized systems, leading to radical changes in market structure. Significant regulatory pressure, legal scrutiny, and the potential for new, aggressive international rules will profoundly impact digital assets, bringing both potential clarity through structure and confusion through shifting goalposts. Extreme emotional volatility and exaggerated reactions to regulatory news or perceived threats and opportunities are guaranteed. Bitcoin, BTC as the market leader, Bitcoin will face opposing forces. It may experience safe haven demand if traditional markets struggle, but will simultaneously be subject to regulatory pressure. The assertive regulatory environment could initially lead to bearishness as the market seeks clarity or perceives a global crackdown. However, the underlying demand for decentralized alternatives and a prevailing speculative appetite could lead to rapid reversals. Expect significant swings, with an initial lean towards bearishness as the market digests the assertive regulatory environment, followed by quick bullish reactions if the news is not as severe as feared or if it highlights specific regulatory paths that favor adoption. XRP, with its strong ties to institutions and cross-border payments, XRP will be acutely sensitive to regulatory developments. Any direct statements from the FOMC regarding digital asset regulation, especially concerning cross-border transactions, will have an outsized impact. There is potential for continued regulatory ambiguity or idealistic but vague pronouncements, and past legal issues could be re-triggered or finally addressed. Consequently, XRP is likely to be highly volatile. A strong, assertive regulatory stance could lead to bearish pressure if it signals increased scrutiny or unfavorable frameworks. Conversely, any clarity or perceived positive step towards integrating digital assets into traditional finance could spark a sharp bullish rally, with the market reacting sharply and emotionally to specific news regarding its regulatory standing. Significant altcoin groups will experience the most extreme volatility. They are particularly susceptible to rapid, unpredictable changes, pumps, and dumps driven by news, community sentiment, and technological developments. While there's interest in diverse, interconnected projects and a drive towards transforming collective networks, the assertive regulatory climate could initially spark widespread bearishness and fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD. However, smaller, innovative projects within key innovation sectors, such as AI, DeFi, RWA, could see sudden, explosive bullish pumps fueled by speculative enthusiasm and community-driven narratives. especially if they present a perceived alternative to centralized control. Overall, anticipate a roller coaster ride, offering both high risk and high reward potential, but with significant downside risk from regulatory uncertainty. In summary, the FOMC decision will be characterized by a strong, assertive, and potentially restrictive approach from regulators, aiming for traditional stability. This will clash with a highly emotional and reactive trading public, especially in the crypto markets, which are poised for disruptive innovation and significant power struggles over their future. The DXY and precious metals are poised to benefit from the perceived strength and underlying uncertainty, while stock markets face volatility and potential long-term headwinds. Crypto markets, on the other hand, should brace for extreme unpredictable swings driven by a blend of direct regulatory pressure and rebellious, speculative energy. Asset class sentiment breakdown. Overall market sentiment for April 2026. Cautiously optimistic with high volatility. The market sentiment for April 2026 is characterized as aggressive volatility, with an average sentiment score of approximately 6.510. The month functions as a bridge between speculative fervor and structural transition. Early in the month, the concentration of planets in Aries creates an explosive risk-on environment, but this is tempered by heavy planetary alignments, specifically involving Saturn and Neptune, that promise sharp corrections and regulatory friction. Investors should view this period as a test of conviction where only the strongest project structures will withstand the mid-month volatility. Strategic outlook and trading phases. The month follows a bifurcated path, requiring a disciplined, buy the dip and sell the rip strategy. The first 3 weeks are defined by a Neptunian fog and Saturnian restrictions, making it a time for defensive positioning in established assets like Bitcoin. Traders should exercise caution around April 19th, when a Mars-Saturn conjunction introduces significant market resistance. Conversely, the final week marks a transformative shift, particularly as Uranus enters Gemini on April 26th. This move is expected to trigger a new technological renaissance, favoring AI and Web3 infrastructure plays. Key risk management. Given the intense planetary energy, traders must maintain tight stop losses, particularly around the April 17th new moon and the April 29th Federal Reserve decision. While the overarching trend remains upward, the path will be marked by intense fakeouts and sudden reversals. Success in April 2026 demands a shift from short-term speculative gambling toward a focus on fundamental utility, as the market moves toward a new paradigm of digital and traditional asset integration. Bitcoin, BTC. A forecast for April 2026, Bitcoin's market dynamics are significantly shaped by the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and the angular relationships of the personal planets. It functions as a hybrid asset, capable of both speculative risk-on movements typical of tech assets and acting as a safe haven, or digital gold. This duality means it will capitalize on speculative surges while also potentially benefiting from investor flight to safety during periods of market uncertainty. Early April, volatility and emerging momentum. The month commences with a potential for hidden market manipulations to surface, indicated by the Sun trine Lilith on April 1st. A full moon in Libra on April 2nd signals a tension between bullish momentum and a desire for price equilibrium, often marking a local market top or bottom. A critical period unfolds between April 8th to 9th, as Mars sextiles Uranus before entering Aries. This planetary shift is expected to ignite a surge in aggressive buying volume for Bitcoin, prompting a breakout attempt. However, Neptune's influence simultaneously introduces an element of uncertainty and high volatility during this period. Mid-April, the Aries confluence and key test. This phase is identified as the month's most potent, characterized by a powerful conjunction of Mars, Neptune, Mercury, and Saturn in Aries. High volatility is anticipated around April 13th due to the Mars-Neptune conjunction, which could lead to pump and dump scenarios or speculation-driven breakouts. Mercury entering Aries on April 15 is expected to accelerate the pace of news and information dissemination. The new moon in Aries on April 17 serves as a powerful catalyst for establishing a new trend. However, the accompanying Sun conjunct Chiron suggests a risk of pain associated with new highs, possibly a fake-out that traps late buyers. Bitcoin will face its most significant test between April 19 and 20, as the Mars-Saturn influence presents substantial overhead resistance, likely resulting in a sharp correction or a reality check for earlier gains. This astrological alignment could also trigger a shakeout of weaker institutional holdings as regulatory clarity potentially emerges. Late April, shifting focus and long-term signals. As the Sun transitions into Taurus on April 20, market attention is expected to shift towards Bitcoin's narrative as a store of value. A substantial long-term bullish signal for Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market is Uranus entering Gemini on April 26, heralding a revolution in communication, data transmission, and decentralized finance. Immediately preceding this, Venus conjuncts Uranus on April 24, indicating a potential for sudden price movements or a spike in volatility. The Fed rate decision on April 29, coinciding with Venus square node and Mars trine Lilith, points to a pivotal revelation regarding monetary policy, which is likely to provoke a sharp reaction in Bitcoin's price. Overall, the sentiment for Bitcoin leans bullish, albeit with significant volatility. Bitcoin is projected to experience a considerable surge in dominance in early April, followed by a sharp reality check around April 19. Acting as the general in Aries, Bitcoin will lead market charges but also endure the brunt of regulatory challenges. A bottom attempt is foreseen around April 13, with a potential top attempt around April 28. The new moon in Aries on April 17 offers a reset point, which could pave the way for new yearly highs if long-term holders successfully absorb selling pressure from forced liquidations. XRP and AltCoins in April 2026. XRP and the regulatory landscape. Throughout April, XRP is expected to mirror its historical connection to regulatory developments and structural financial shifts. The month begins with a period of relative stability supported by Venus in Taurus, though an early square to Pluto on April 3 suggests initial legal or structural hurdles must be cleared. As the month progresses, the focus shifts toward aggressive regulatory action and potential breakthroughs. A pivotal moment arrives around April 19, 20, when the Mars-Saturn conjunction and Mercury-Saturn alignment in Aries may trigger significant legal news or structural updates. While XRP may initially lag behind Bitcoin, these mid-month transits could spark a sharp price spike as the asset navigates its inherent trial by fire. Speculative volatility in the altcoin sector. The broader altcoin market is set for extreme movement, driven largely by the high-energy Aries cluster occurring between April 10 and 17. During this window, the presence of Mercury, Mars, Neptune, and Saturn in Aries creates an environment of intense speculation, offering the potential for parabolic growth in meme coins and low-cap projects. However, investors should exercise caution, particularly around April 13, as a Mars-Neptune conjunction increases the risk of market scams and rug pulls. While mid-cap tokens may see explosive gains during this period, they remain highly vulnerable to subsequent corrections and the volatility of the Sun-Pluto square on April 25. The ingress of a new digital era. The final week of April marks a significant astrological shift as Uranus enters Gemini on April 26, signaling a long-term buy signal for the Internet of Value. This transition favors projects focused on cross-border payments, Layer 2 solutions, AI-related tokens, and messaging protocols. While April 25 and 26 carry the risk of flash crashes due to over-leveraged positions, the overarching sentiment remains bullish toward the month's end. As Venus enters Gemini on April 24 and Uranus begins its new cycle on April 26, the market is likely to see high-velocity moonshots and a surge of innovation in decentralized finance and exchange tokens. establishing a new long-term bullish cycle for the digital asset ecosystem. Ethereum and other smart contract platforms are poised for increased activity, driven by the Mercury ingress into Aries on April 15 and Uranus's entry into Gemini on April 26. These astrological shifts are expected to stimulate developer engagement and boost Layer 2 adoption, potentially leading to price appreciation. While optimistic news flow is anticipated around April 3 due to Mercury trine Jupiter, a Mercury-Saturn conjunction on April 20 could temper the rally with regulatory announcements. As Venus enters Gemini on April 24 and subsequently trines Pluto on April 28, market sentiment may pivot towards the value of staking yields and MEV extraction capabilities. Specifically for Ethereum ETH, Uranus entering Gemini suggests a burst of on-chain activity and speculative spikes, particularly as AI-driven DeFi products launch. ETH is generally expected to trade 3 to 6% higher than its opening price, with significant volatility between the new moon and full moon, favoring momentum plays over fundamental analysis, especially around April 3 and April 24. Web3 and AI altcoins. A significant sectoral rotation is predicted for Web3 and AI altcoins, commencing around April 26 with Uranus's entry into its ruled domain of Gemini. This transit is anticipated to trigger a speculative boom across machine learning tokens, decentralized computer networks, and autonomous agent protocols, mirroring the technological optimism observed in previous Uranus-Gemini cycles. Similar to Ethereum, these altcoins are likely to experience volatility around April 3 and April 24, favoring momentum. Overall, these platforms are projected to remain in a relatively steady state with minor fluctuations of approximately plus or minus 1%, unless a major regulatory event, like a Federal Reserve decision, triggers a broader liquidity crunch. The privacy-focused altcoins are entering a highly volatile period due to conflicting astrological influences. While Pluto in Aquarius supports fundamental demand for privacy, a Mars-Saturn conjunction simultaneously threatens potential regulatory clampdowns. This creates an environment where stealth accumulation is likely to occur between April 8 and 13 during the Capricorn to Pisces lunar phase, before any potential breakout moves. Hidden liquidity flows, possibly from sovereign funds or as stealth wallets, are expected to amplify, leading to sudden volume spikes not immediately visible in public order books. The Sun-Lilith trine may lend a rebellious tone, making privacy altcoins attractive to anti-establishment sentiment, particularly during the Libra full moon. While a 4 to 7% upside swing is possible, a sharp reversal potential exists when the moon enters Scorpio on April 30, signaling deep transformation and the possibility of renewed regulatory scrutiny. Regulatory targeting of anonymity, hinted at by a Venus-Pluto square around April 3, adds to the complexity, though late March Lilith transits might spark brief rallies. Gold and silver, precious metals, XAU, XAG. The outlook for gold and silver in April 2026 is generally bullish, rooted in the seasonal transition of the Sun into Taurus, which traditionally governs tangible assets and bullion. As geopolitical tensions rise under the influence of an Aries stellium and volatility impacts digital currencies, capital is expected to rotate into precious metals, reinforcing their role as essential safe haven assets. While the dollar may see intermittent strength during early-month fiscal events, gold is positioned to reclaim its value as inflation-related concerns resurface throughout the latter half of the month. Volatility and performance dynamics. Despite an overarching positive sentiment, the market will likely encounter significant friction caused by Pluto's challenging aspects. Early-month squares involving Venus and the Sun may trigger liquidity-driven sell-offs as traders test market depths, creating temporary consolidation periods. Investors should anticipate gold to fluctuate within specific price bands, potentially rallying by 3% following the resolution of the Venus-Pluto trine on April 28. Silver, exhibiting a higher beta, remains more volatile than gold. It may face a price ceiling around April 20th, but is well positioned for a sharper 5% bounce toward the end of the month as industrial demand narratives align with its status as a monetary hedge. The US Dollar Index, DXY. Early month volatility and structural tensions. The US Dollar Index, DXY, enters April under the influence of contrasting forces, beginning the month with a period of noticeable weakness. While the Sun and Venus move through Taurus to offer a sense of earthy stability and value preservation, this is offset by intense planetary squares involving Pluto. These alignments, specifically around April 3rd, suggest deep-seated concerns regarding fiat currency valuation and power struggles over national debt. Investors should expect the first 10 days to reflect a lack of momentum as the market grapples with these structural tensions, potentially keeping a ceiling on any significant gains. The mid-month recovery and flight to safety. As the month progresses, the DXY is expected to transition into a U-shaped recovery, fueled by a shift in market sentiment. Between April 13th and April 24th, astrological configurations involving Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter suggest a period of heightened market anxiety. This nervousness typically triggers a fear bid, causing capital to flee riskier assets like equities and crypto in favor of the safety of the greenback. This powerful mid-month surge acts as a corrective bounce, providing a temporary relief rally that reinforces the dollar's role as a balancing asset within the global economy. Late-month bearish bias and structural shifts. The bullish momentum is likely to fade toward the end of April as the Sun squares Pluto around the 25th. This transition signals a rejection of traditional valuation metrics and a return to a more risk-on environment, which historically pressures the dollar. Furthermore, the shift of Uranus into Gemini introduces long-term volatility into currency exchange markets, suggesting that the DXY may end the month with a slight bearish bias. Despite the mid-month spikes, the overarching sentiment remains cautious as the dollar navigates alternating phases of expansion and restriction. This concludes our financial and crypto market astrology analysis for April 2026. Please support my work by subscribing to my channel, liking and sharing this video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.